How you doing, everybody? Vasu Vaddiparty, Casey Freelove here. This is the Monday edition of the Make the Money and Run podcast on June 14th, 2021. And for those of you that watch on Facebook and YouTube Live on Friday, I think I made a mistake. I can't believe I made a mistake, but I made a mistake, Casey. I said one was Flag Day. Today is Flag Day. June 14th, 2021. Today is Flag Day. First day of the week. I always look at Flag Day as the day to start looking at baseball standings, like for real. And today is a good day to start doing that. You see some of the teams that are going back and forth. We're here every Monday, Thursday, Friday, 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific, live on YouTube and on Facebook. Thank you to everybody, Facebook and YouTube. If you miss any of it, including our worldwide famous pick segments at the end of the show, download and subscribe. Anywhere you get your podcast, just find the logo up there in the top right corner. Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts, and just download, subscribe, rate, and review. You can get to all of us on social media, Facebook and Instagram, and also the Make the Money and Run page on Facebook as well. Casey Freelove in, Charlie O on assignment. Casey, how are you?
I'm doing well, and I totally echo your sentiment as far as let's look at the standings. I know we're going to talk a lot of hoops, but I know you were watching the Cubs and Cardinals series very closely this weekend, my friend, and we talked about it on Friday. We said if the Cubs have a nice weekend, they're going to be right back there in the thick of things. Well, what do? They sweep away their rival, including a 2-0 win in like the fastest Sunday night game maybe ever last night. So you're right. Things are starting to kind of heat up figuratively and literally if you're here in Northern California, where it's going to be 105 degrees come Wednesday, depending on where you're listening from. But, yeah, it's a good time, man. I'm excited. I'm excited about the Suns, excited about the playoffs, and the way that everything's just kind of shifted on a dime with these injuries to the Brooklyn Nets as well. A lot of intrigue going on in the world of sports.
No doubt about it. The NBA basketball takes place. Nikola Jokic gets kicked out of Game 4 in an elimination game. That's the lines right there, but he gets wiped out in Game 4. The Suns wipe out the Nuggets. Play great defense by the Phoenix Suns in that big win. -3.5 on the spread, easily covered. And then the third quarter ejection of Jokic certainly didn't help. They were already a depleted roster to begin with, and it was a tough series for the Denver Nuggets. We thought if they got by Portland, they were going to have a tough time going up against the Phoenix Suns. Anyway, Phoenix has been the number 2 team. And anybody that thinks that Chris Paul doesn't deserve MVP talk, I'm going to shout this from the rooftop because I've said it since January, and he deserves every accolade that he gets because the Phoenix Suns have no business being here without Chris Paul. And look at what he did yesterday, not only coming off the bad shoulder he had in the last series, but he played well last night, and they did a lot of good. DeAndre Ayton did good. He's been dominating. DeAndre Ayton dominated Jokic and all the big men that the Nuggets had. The Nuggets had a tough time playing defense, and Jay Crowder shot the ball well. Devin Booker shot the ball well. Cameron Payne, who was the object of Jokic's affection, for lack of a better word, also shot the ball well. And it was just a mismatch between the Phoenix Suns and the Denver Nuggets, Casey. And now they're waiting for the Utah Jazz LA Clippers. We almost buried the Clippers on Thursday night, and sure enough, they've got a chance to even it up. And no Mike Conley again tonight for Game 4. We also buried the Milwaukee Bucks after going into Thursday's show too. And now the Milwaukee Bucks have come back, and now Kyrie Irving, and James Harden are questionable for Game 5. And how about this? As we get to the notes here, Bucks not in trouble. Here they are. They're favored to win the series, but the Nets are still favored to win the title. Casey, all I can say to that is, huh?
Right, yeah. Even the sportsbook guys that run the books, in explaining the article to ESPN where I first read that, were kind of like, no, listen to me. We have to go with this because of this, because we don't know about Kyrie, but if Harden comes back, that changes it like this. If both come back, it changes it like that. And if both miss the rest of the series, well, they're going home. I mean, that's the bottom line, because the Bucks completely flipped the script. I mean, even PJ Tucker's having like a career renaissance here during the game. And one thing I'll say as a whole, Vasu, I know we're going to talk about each series individually, but if the NBA wants to get fans back and generate interest in markets where maybe it hasn't been before, this is it. This is perfection. I mean, the Phoenix Suns rocking and rolling, taking out the Denver Nuggets. The Utah Jazz, who knows right now? The Clippers, they've got just as good a shot. And I want to go back to what the Suns did, because I actually was hanging out with my mom yesterday, got her to watch her first playoff game of the year. And even her, who does not watch a lot of NBA, after Chris Paul hit that 6th jumper mid-range from the exact same spot on the court in the third quarter, she's like, don't you think they should adjust the defense a little bit and like move somebody into that
great
hole?
analyst.
I mean, yes, she's basically saying what Doris Burke is thinking on television. Vasu, I mean, at 36, this is one of the greatest playoff runs we've seen in modern history. And I got to tell you, I'm pleased as punch. I've loved this guy everywhere he goes. You and I have talked about him. Look what he did with Oklahoma City, leading a team that had no business competing into the playoffs. I mean, the guy just knows how to win. And he's also a leader of men, which is something that's been really lost in the shuffle here in the NBA. I don't think you could tell me who the clear-cut leader is of the Brooklyn Nets, even though they've got 3 superstar players. When you look at the Suns, they've got the calming force in the coach and the player who trust each other, and the young guys are coming along for the ride, and that's kind of like a perfect combination, in my opinion.
ABC and ESPN did a good thing. They were comparing in TNT also as well. Chris Paul played for Monty Williams in Oklahoma City. Monty Williams has had real-life experiences. Unfortunately, his wife died in a car crash. So he's got an even temper because this is not as important as what happened to his personal life. And Chris Paul was a young man when he played for Monty Williams, and a young Anthony Davis as well was there too early in his career when Paul was about mid-range of his career. And so the two of them have gone together, and every interview Chris Paul does as it relates to Monty Williams, the head coach, is showing a lot of love, is showing a lot of respect. He says he'll do anything for that coach because that coach led him into the direction that he was in. Chris Paul still gets underrated as far as NBA point guards. He is not underrated in my book, and he is an MVP candidate. And what he did to lead this team, and I'm sure the pick and roll that he's got going with DeAndre Ayton was completely aided as soon as he came here, because now you can see DeAndre Ayton shooting jump shots, driving to the hole. He took Jokic down low. Jokic is not an easy body to move, and DeAndre Ayton has quick feet, has good hands, very flexible, and is able to dominate, and he gets 10 boards a game. And then Cameron Payne off the bench. The bench guys for the Phoenix Suns actually played really well, and Jay Crowder, a veteran guy, has played in many a playoff series, and he's a big part of that success for the Phoenix Suns. And I'm not putting anything against them, Casey. Whoever comes out of the Clippers Jazz series, Phoenix beat Utah 3-0, by the way, in the regular season. They went 1-2 against the Clippers, but that's not the same Clippers team that was shooting the ball well during the year. And that's not the same Phoenix team, even though they were playing well through the year. This is a better Phoenix team, and they look like they're more cohesive. And don't you think that Jokic foul clearly bonded the team even more so together, more than they were even before, Casey?
Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of balanced scoring here. You've got basically all your 4 of your 5 starters with double digits, including over 30. I mean, Chris Paul, the most points he's had in the playoffs, maybe ever, 37 is quite impressive. Then Devin Booker, I mean, what can you say? Book is just amazing. I mean, he's that young kind of driving force and engine, and I just love the rotation. You mix in Saric, Craig, you put in Cameron Payne yesterday. That's good coaching, and defense and unders is something you and I have been talking about in the second half of the season heading into the playoffs. Who's going to play defense? Who's going to have low-scoring games? And you're seeing Phoenix be a beneficiary of that. Now, let's talk a little bit from the fan perspective, Vasu. And if you folks want to weigh in on the comments, I want to know what you think as well. Stephen A. Smith, some of the other media pundits getting very upset with the flagrant 2, basically on Jokic, ensuring that the Nuggets were not going to be able to win the game. I don't like the windmill windup and the way he hit him in the nose, because you could literally break the bridge of your nose the way he kind of karate chopped him. But Vasu, I mean, that is a tough spot for the networks, for the fans of basketball across the country, because the second he went out, you knew the game was over, and that was still with 4 minutes left in the third quarter. So what do you think? Right call for the 2, flagrant 2?
Tough call to make, Casey. I was really surprised that it was a flagrant 2 and he was ejected. You could see the windup come down, and he did hit him in the face first. And anything above the neck and in the head area, they do look at it automatically. And if you make contact there and it looks like a violent contact strike, then you have to at least give them the flagrant 1. Yeah, they ensured that the Nuggets were going to be out of it at that point. They're already down 3-0 in the series. The only people that were happy were the people who had the Phoenix Suns minus 3.5 and maybe the under a little bit in that game, but I just couldn't see the Nuggets winning that game anyway. And I don't think if Jokic was there, it would have made a difference, but it certainly did not help for have him be ejected late in the third quarter. And you can see the life go out of the Denver Nuggets at that point. Monty Morris had a great series. The Michael Porter Jr. had a great series, but there really wasn't much else. The fact that they got through Portland and were very tired coming into the Phoenix Suns series probably was their doom going into it. The Suns were a 1.5 underdog Game 3, and then after that Game 3 blowout, and the under came through on that Friday night, then the Game 4 was they went from plus 1.5 to minus 3.5, so a 5-point swing. And you can tell that the bookmakers and the fans are all rooting for the Suns right now, or not rooting for the Suns, but can see the Suns with the best defense. I'd venture to say the 4 teams left in the or the 3 teams left now in the playoff series the Suns have the best defense over the other three teams because Milwaukee's pretty good. They were top 5 defense, but they have their share of giving up points, and they did that with the Nets as well too. Let's move on to the Eastern Conference. Bucks are not in trouble. They were dead. We righted their we did taps for them on Thursday. We did taps for them and taps for the Clippers on Thursday after 2-0 leads, and neither one of them looked good, Casey. And here they are. They get a big win, 86-83. Knock 'em, rock 'em, sock 'em. The video game, that little boxing thing that we had when we were kids, the rock 'em, sock 'em robots. That's what it looked like because it looked like 1985 for these games. 86-83 for the two highest scoring teams. 169 was the total for a 237 over-under, which we talked about on Friday. And then they come back, and they were down by 11, down by 12. Kyrie Irving gets hurt. I don't know if they should have called a foul on Giannis or not. At that point, they don't call fouls for getting under the layup guys, but they do for the jump shot guys, and Kyrie Irving went out. And it's a big deal now because no Kyrie Irving, maybe no James Harden. James Harden, I think, is the most all-around player on the Nets team because he distributes the ball better than the other two of the big three. And unless I don't know if Kevin Durant can carry him all by himself. They don't have a lot of guys on that team. Joe Harris is a good shooter, and they haven't even used DeAndre Jordan for defense at all in this series. And the Bucks came back in the second half, and I liked them. And when they went to -2 as a favorite, the Nets did, after being a 1-point favorite the other night. Were they 1-point favorite, or the Bucks were? No, the Bucks were 3.5-point favorite in Game 3 because I had the Nets plus 3.5 the other night. So, but they went to a -1 and then a -2 before 3:15 Eastern yesterday afternoon. I said I'm taking Milwaukee Game 4 +2 because I just got a good feeling about the Bucks at home after winning Game 3. And sure enough, Giannis came out to play. How aggressive was Giannis, Casey? And Chris Middleton made shots. He had that 4-point play. I don't think he missed more than 3 shots after that 4-point play that he had. You could tell his confidence was back. Brook Lopez playing very well defensively. They're doing the things they need to do to stop him. And they're bracketing Kevin Durant because after Irving went out, what else are you going to do? Joe Harris hasn't hit the broadside of a barn in this series yet, Casey. So here are the Bucks now, favored to win the series, but not yet favored to win, but not yet better in the title odds of Brooklyn.
So many layers to this. I mean, we can look at coaching. I love Steve Nash, but this is his maiden voyage. Now, I understand he's got great support staff around him, but considering the amount of shuffling this team has had to do with their lineup, I don't even know if he knows what his ideal starting 5 is. I mean, obviously you want the big 3, but you're probably not going to have them. The Harden hamstring injury, Vasu, we both tweaked a hammy in the past. We're just average guys. We don't have to play at an elite level in the NBA playoffs. That's going to be a problem. I mean, you can't just say game in and game out. You can just ice that bad boy or put some heat on it and think you're going to be able to go out there and give them, 35, 38 minutes, which I think would be their ideal scenario. You talk about the Bucks. Drew Holiday distributing the ball well. Giannis playing insane defense and really with a look in his eye on offense that has got to be scary if you are a Brooklyn Nets fan. And I wonder this too, Vasu, this hasn't been talked about a lot, but Dante DiVincenzo was a pretty big piece for the Bucks. Now, he got hurt right just a couple of weeks ago. Maybe there was a little feeling out time for the adjusting to the new lineup and maybe not having him in there. I know, I understand he's not like, a big 2 or a big 3 piece, but he is a very good player, and he's a guy that they were accustomed to having played with over the course of the season. So, in effect, you've got the Nets with a completely different lineup than they were expecting. The Bucks still feeling each other out. And the bottom line is maybe we just saw a switch ignite in Milwaukee because if they don't get back Kyrie, they're in trouble. You said it perfectly, dude. I mean, Kevin Durant's the man, but he's not a man that can carry a team past the Bucks who have been there. Their coach has been there 3 years in a row, trying to earn some respect in the playoffs. Giannis knows that he feels like he's a little scorned, and they're perceived as the 3rd best team. So Milwaukee's playing with a chip on their shoulder, and they're already pretty good. So that's a pretty nasty combination if you're a fan of the Nets. And aside from that, my friend, the gambling part of this is absolutely bonkers. I've never seen anything like this as far as a team being an underdog in a series, yet still the favorite to win the whole thing. That's probably unprecedented.
Any mathematicians out there on Facebook or YouTube can get to us because I want everybody to explain the difference. Anybody that's real licensed can tell us the difference between a permutation and a combination because there's a lot of areas to go to with Milwaukee. Drew Holiday started off slow yesterday. They were down by 11. He made a couple of shots. He got going defensively. He's a great top of the key defender. You mentioned DiVincenzo. He's probably their best wing defender, but yesterday they played defense, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, who's been a defensive player of the year twice, turned it on a little bit, and he was bracketing Durant along with along with Holiday as well, too. And how about Giannis being aggressive finally, going to the hole? That's the last part of the Bucks part we'll talk about. But how about Giannis being aggressive, going to the hole and taking it? How about the one dunk that got the crowd going when they were down 11? He was the one. His dunk was the one that put them up 1. And then the second half, they just rolled to a 17, 18-point victory.
The matchup predictor on ESPN has Brooklyn, for whatever reason, at 65% to win it. It's a little surprising. Obviously, this is all going to fluctuate, and it's going to come down to game time. I'm just wondering, how bad is that injury? I mean, look, man, you don't want to be seen in crutches and wearing a boot leaving the arena than getting on an airplane to fly back to the East Coast. That's not a good look. It doesn't tell me that, oh, yeah, he'll be ready to go tomorrow. Even if he is ready to go, Vasu, God forbid we have a Durant-like situation from a couple years ago, or anytime that we see guys like Anthony Davis in the Lakers series that aren't healthy enough to be on the court, but feel the pressure of needing to be on the court. I mean, all I want is help for these guys, but this Nets thing is really falling apart in 2 games. It's very fascinating because I think all of us thought that if these 3 guys are healthy, they're probably one of the top 2 teams in the NBA.
Make the Money and Run podcast. Vasu, Vaddiparty, Casey, Freelove, Charlie O on assignment. Let's move on to the lines themselves. Philadelphia, Atlanta, and Clippers, Utah. Utah up 2-1. Game 4 in Los Angeles tonight. Philadelphia up 2-1. Game 4 in Atlanta tonight. They're the early game, 7:30. The Utah game, I think it's 7:30, right? 7:30 Eastern, and then Utah's 10 o'clock, or is it 7 o'clock and 6:30 or 9:30? Okay, so 7:30 Eastern, Philadelphia, 3.5. It went up from 3. It went up from 2.5, actually, all the way to 3.5 as we speak at 4:30 Eastern right now. 225.5 the total. The game went over on Game 3, but Philadelphia's defense looked a lot better than they did, obviously, in Game 1. Game 2, the game was close for a first half, and then Game 3, Atlanta played tight early, and then Philadelphia dominated. And how about Joel Embiid? Nobody can stop Joel Embiid right now. He's a man on a mission. He's healthy. And to me, a 2-1 Philadelphia lead looks to me more like Atlanta's on life support, Casey, whereas a 2-1 Utah lead seems like the Clippers are still right in it.
Exactly. Yes, I agree. I mean, the Hawks had a great first half of Game 1, and since then, the Sixers have kind of flexed their muscle and shown why they were the number 1 seed in the Eastern Conference. I mean, it's been a good series, I would say, by Young and Bogdanovich, but they're just hurting a little bit as far as the way they look on the court. I mean, not having DeAndre Hunter is going to hurt them a little bit.
No doubt.
Sixers, we don't know about Danny Green, whether or not he's ever going to play again, but you mentioned Embiid keeps getting listed as questionable. He don't look questionable when he's out there on the court, man. He looks like he is here to dominate and help his team win. In fact, it's been so good that they didn't have to worry about hack a Ben Simmons or a hack a Shaq because they were ahead by so much that would have been a futile effort by the Hawks as well. I really like the Sixers team. They've gone from 8-1 last week to win the East down to just 2-1 or plus 220 to win the Eastern Conference. Really wished I lived in Nevada because I'd be waiting to bank those dollars. Been talking about the Sixers for about 5 freaking weeks on this show as far as betting them to win the East. I think they are going to win the East. I think that I can't wait to see who they play, whether it's Milwaukee or Brooklyn. It's going to be great. And I'm not hating on the Hawks. The Hawks are a team that's going to be a contender year in and year out as long as they keep this core nucleus together. And the point spread is good. Everybody's on Philadelphia. That's why it moved up a half point. Everybody's betting the Sixers, at least at OddsShark and some of these other sites I'm looking at. A lot of people also like that over, Vasu, at 225.5. And one other thing, before I toss it back to you, if you're still betting series odds, the Sixers are minus 800. So 8-1, you have to lay that they're going to win the series. If you think the Hawks can come back, you can get back plus 5-1, plus 500. In the Brooklyn Nets Milwaukee Bucks series, we already talked about it. It's wacky. Bucks are minus 140. Nets are plus 120 on that series. And then the Jazz and Clippers, which we'll talk about momentarily, has Utah minus 200 with the Clippers plus 170. I feel like there's a little bit of value right there. But as far as tonight's game, I mean, when we get to plays, you're going to see it. I'm on the Sixers. I'm just going to go money line, but I fully believe that they've discovered the Hawks' weakness and they'll be able to exploit it. And the thing is, Atlanta doesn't have anybody that can stop Embiid. Maybe DeAndre Ayton's the only guy left that can stop Embiid. We won't know that for a few weeks, but Philly's got to be feeling really confident about themselves.
Two quick things here for me on the last part of the Philadelphia-Atlanta series before we go to the Clippers-Utah is you can't be physical with Joel Embiid because if you foul him, he shoots 82% from the free throw line. He is a good outside shot, too. He's hit a couple of threes in the series. And the guys like me and the guys on ESPN and TNT that were saying that Clint Capella was going to give him a tough time in terms of being able to physically match up with him. He did for about the first half of game one. And then ever since then, it's been all Joel Embiid. It's been all Joel Embiid. Let me say it again. It's been all Joel Embiid, and Ben Simmons has not had too much of an impact. But you know what? I'll give Ben Simmons credit. Defensively, he has been on Trae Young, and he has blanketed him. And they are playing Matisse Thybulle from the University of Washington. Has had good impact as well, too, even though he fouled out the other day. But Doc Rivers has a defensive plan for Trae Young. He's the superstar on that team. So you bracket him just like they're doing for Durant, just like they're doing for Kawhi Leonard with the Clippers series. And they'll figure out something. The Clippers will figure out something for Utah as well. All right, let's get to the Clippers and Utah series. How about the blowout on Sunday night? Surprisingly, it was Saturday night. I'm sorry, today's Monday. I'm still Chicago time here, but surprisingly, Utah just looked terrible on Saturday. They were up for a little bit first half. Clippers came out and started turning on. They looked like the Clippers in the middle of the season that were shooting the threes and making all the shots necessary. Kawhi Leonard got up there, and he was up defensively as well as offensively. Paul George shot well. Remember, the Clippers team, they shot more than 50% of their field goal attempts were from the three-point line, and they were making them the other night, and that's what increased the lead. I had the over in the game, 222 on Saturday night. It's gone up 1.5 from the Saturday night line. I don't think it's going to slow down from that standpoint. I think it's going to go over as well. But what do we think about the Clippers? Is this going to be even? Or does Utah without Mike Conley, Donovan Mitchell's been all world, and Gobert's played pretty well defensively, but they've stopped Bogdanovich, they've stopped Ingles, and in fact, that little skirmish between Paul George and Ingles kind of fired up Paul George as well too, because even the press conference, he said next question when asked about Joe Ingles. So what are we looking at here for the number one seed Utah going into game 4 tonight, 3-1 or 2-2?
Well, getting 5 points is certainly intriguing. I mean, whether or not you think they're going to win the game, that's a lot of points for a team that's been the number one team in the Western Conference and actually has played pretty well on the road. Total also interesting. The public likes overs today. It's over Monday. Everybody's all over these overs. This game set at 223.5. I think they really miss Mike Conley, Vasu. I mean, they don't have anybody else that can be as good in that role. Now, I know Donovan Mitchell's all world, especially when it comes to scoring, but as far as a distributor, and also a guy who has playoff acumen, whether we're talking about back when he was with Memphis or with this current Utah Jazz team, there's something to be said about having a guy that can distribute the ball. Ask Chris Paul and company how that's going in the other series. As far as LA, they have the talent to win this series. They could win this series. I don't know if I can trust in them because they are the Los Angeles Clippers. It'd be kind of like betting the Browns to win the Super Bowl. I just can't do that until I see them do it one year. But you mentioned Kawhi came alive. If Kawhi and Paul George do what they're capable of doing, that's going to accumulate, 60, 70 points for you. And then you need the rest of your stars around you to continue playing fundamentally sound. I think the best play for the Clippers would be to get back there and try and defend. Keep Utah in the 100s to 110 range rather than their season average up there at 119 because LA's averaging 113 points per game. Leonard, by the way, in this series, he's shooting 51.2%. That's got to make you feel pretty good. Paul George averaging 24 points a game. I love it. Look, Vasu, we're getting a little desperate for some good playoff basketball. We haven't had much of it, man. So let's hope that maybe this is a series that can get us 6 or 7 games, which also helps my heartstrings because I'm pulling for the Suns. I'll just admit it. Chris Paul gets a little time to rest that shoulder, rest those old legs a little bit, and be ready to rock and roll in about 6 days. So I'm not going to be surprised if the Clippers win tonight. And if this series ends up going the distance, and I hope for the sake of basketball, it does.
Yeah, it'll be good for basketball for one of these series to go 7 games. In fact, Milwaukee, Brooklyn tomorrow night, they're at 2-2 right now. So big game 5, and Milwaukee favored in Brooklyn when like I said, we buried them last week being down 2-0 and couldn't do anything. One other guy to mention on the Clippers because we're looking for a third guy for the Clippers right now. Reggie Jackson having a really good series for the Clippers. He's shooting the lights out, distributing the ball. I'm just looking for a guy like Patrick Beverley who plays tenacious defense. I don't know if you can keep him on the floor a lot because he doesn't shoot the ball well, and they leave him open, and he's missed threes. And I was watching that over the other night on Saturday night, and Patrick Beverley kept taking threes that he was missing pretty badly wide open. At least make one. Make the over come easy, Patrick Beverley. Let's go. You're already a nuisance. So let's not be a nuisance for the bettors out there. But good for the defense and good for the Clippers to be able to knock down Utah a little bit from that standpoint. 26-point victory. I think it was 132-108. I think it ended up. So good for the Clippers, and I think they may end up winning this game 4, and then we'll figure out what to do when they go back to Utah. And Mike Conley's situation, Donovan Mitchell playing point guard. They have to move Ingles into the starting lineup. He's not a starting lineup type of guy, Bojanovic struggled the last game in LA. We'll see if he picks it up tonight. And then, of course, Donovan Mitchell's going to get us 25-30. And Gobert's got to play defense. He cannot let the Clippers big men dominate him on the inside. He's got to be DPOY as he was during the year, Defensive Player of the Year for those acronyms.
And we got to give Ty Lue some credit because he saw that Zubac was struggling a little bit and the Jazz were kind of figuring out the formula. He's not afraid to make some tweaks and adjustments because each team left has such a distinctive style. And it's so interesting, Vasu, again, that we have so many centers left that are making these playoffs so relevant. I mean, you mentioned Rudy Gobert. We've obviously got DeAndre Ayton playing well. And these are a couple of guys you have to be wary of. So I do give Ty Lue credit because I think we thought this series might be able to get away from the Clippers right off the bat. And right now, I mean, I don't know about -5, but I feel pretty good about them being able to maybe pick up the victory tonight. Don't you?
Looks pretty easy compared to what happened on you can't imagine that Utah's going to get blown out 2 games in a row, but -5 right now based on game 3 might be pretty easy. But I do like the over in that game. We'll have our official picks at the end. All right, before we get to our official picks, let's just blanket it out there. Who do you think's going to win tonight? Forget the point spread, forget the totals for the 3 games that are left today and tomorrow.
Well, let's run through them. I will go with the Sixers to win in Atlanta. I feel like the Hawks have been figured out, and they have no defense for Embiid. Yet another center, by the way, since we're talking about centers. I'm going to go with the Clippers to even this series up. I just feel like they've made the right amount of adjustments. And until Mike Conley's back in there, I can't throw 100% confidence behind the Jazz. Now, with that said, if Mike Conley comes back, then that's great. And I think the Jazz will go on to win this series. But I really feel like the Clippers have the potential to come back and pick up a victory. Then tomorrow, Vasu, I mean, you're asking me 24 hours before I know what Kyrie's ankle, if it's going to be swelled up like a freaking
hot
grapefruit.
It's hot takes.
Yeah, hot takes, exactly. Dude, I mean, this is just crazy. Milwaukee -3, the total at 218.5. They've completely flipped the script. Remember when it was over under 235 just a couple of games
240
ago?
in game 1.
Screw it. I'm taking the Bucks. I think that Kyrie won't be able to play and Durant won't be able to carry him. Who you got in the next 3?
I like Philadelphia. I like the Clippers, and I like Milwaukee too. Well, actually, I like Brooklyn to win game 5. I think Brooklyn will win game 5. I think they're at home, and they've got the crowd behind them now. They've got a full crowd. Milwaukee hasn't proven they can win on the road yet. They did against Miami, but Miami was not the same team they were last year in the bubble. So Philadelphia, the Clippers, and Milwaukee. Last word on the – go ahead.
How about these let's talk home court. I mean, you can feel it, right? When you've got your TV on.
Yeah,
I'm telling you,
there's crowds back, yeah.
Yeah, like in Milwaukee, even this whole fear of the deer and the crowd outside, it's almost like you can feel it on the inside of the arena. I got to tell you, man, after this hellacious 14, 15 months we've been through, it is so great to see fans. Not the fans that are fighting. We've seen a little of that too. But it is pretty cool because you and I know, having covered sports our whole lives, that means something to the athlete. You can't even quantify how much it means, but the want to win factor can't be denied, and it's finally back in the NBA.
Philadelphia 3.5, 225.5. The Clippers favored by 5, 223.5. They're down 2-1 to Utah. Philadelphia up 2-1 on Atlanta. Milwaukee, Brooklyn tomorrow night. They're tied at 2 after the Bucks win the 2 home games, and of course Phoenix eliminated Denver in 4 straight. All right, that's a shot at the NBA. We've got the preview all set up for this week. On Thursday and Friday, we'll review games 4 and 5 of all the series and see who's gotten closer to the conference finals as we move on. But coming up next after the break on the Make the Money and Run podcast, by the way, shout out to Taylor Phillips. Thanks very much, Taylor, for watching, and everybody on Facebook and YouTube. Download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts, on Apple and Spotify specifically, or anywhere you miss it, including our world famous picks that we do at the end of the show. A lot of baseball to talk about. In the next segment, we've got a lot of things going on in the National League. Some teams that started out hot are cold. Some teams that are cold have started out hot. And some teams we thought we were going to be right there are, in fact, right there. Casey and I will talk about that in 30 seconds. Major League Baseball. Coming up on the Make the Money and Run podcast on Monday, June 14th, 2021. It is Flag Day. I verified it for today. Back in 30. Welcome back to the Make the Money and Run podcast. Casey Freelove, Vasu Vaddiparty here. Charlie O on assignment. He'll be back with us on Thursday. Casey Freelove. You have to unmute yourself, Casey. We're here Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. 4:15 Eastern, 1:15 Pacific, Facebook Live and YouTube. Thanks to everybody that's watching us live right now. We'll have our pick segment in about 20 minutes. You can download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcast. We appreciate all the correspondence we got. I actually met somebody over the weekend, Casey. As soon as I said something about make the money and run, somebody had actually watched us in Chicago. We've got a few viewers out there in Chicago, so we appreciate that. David, thanks very much for watching. Hopefully we give you some good winners here over the weekend. Your Cubs are playing really well. Let's get into baseball as we get to it right now. What a weekend it was in baseball. I was in Chicago for 24 hours, watched the Cubs who were red hot. Remember, this is the team that was going to rebuild at the beginning of the year, Casey? Yep. Rizzo, Baez, and Bryant, all free agents at the end of the year. No pitching to speak of. And here they are tied for first in the National League Central with the Milwaukee Brewers, who have played very well. In fact, as I pull up the standings here, the Milwaukee Brewers have won 9 out of the last 10. The Cincinnati Reds have won 8 out of the last 10. The Cubs are only 6-4 in their last 10, but they had a rough weekend in San Francisco the weekend before. But some of the news and notes of the National League here: Philadelphia swept the Yankees. The Mets have won 2 out of 3 out of those Padres. Tell me again why everybody's having the Padres. Charlie O, where are you, Charlie O, when I need to talk about the Padres? Miami takes 2 out of 3 from Atlanta. Washington and San Francisco. Boy, the bats went cold after they went to Texas. They split with San Francisco. 4 games, 2-2 each, and they're still in first place. Cubs and Milwaukee, as I said, they're both hot. They're tied for first. St. Louis has gone on a big losing streak. They just got swept by the Cubs. They're behind the Reds now in fourth place. They're 6 games back in the NL Central as I look at it here. 6 games back. Cincinnati is 5 games back, even after an 8-2 run and a 3-game winning streak. Milwaukee's won 4 in a row. The Cubs have won 5 in a row. The Cardinals have lost 3 in a row, and the Pirates have lost 7 in a row. Cincinnati swept Colorado over the weekend. The LA Dodgers take Texas 2 out of 3. Trevor Bauer, for all those Bauer haters, he's the one that got the loss on Saturday against the Rangers, but they're only a game back of the Giants. And Arizona blows 2 leads over the weekend against the Angels. The Angels are red hot. We'll talk about them in the American League. Casey, what about the National League right now? Where are you going to? By the way, the biggest leads – I'm sorry, Casey, one more thing. The biggest lead in the National League, Chicago has a 5-game lead over Cincinnati. They're tied with Milwaukee, but 5 games in the NL Central and 5.5 in the AL Central, the biggest spreads right now in baseball.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're starting to see – you talked about the Cubs both on this program and on my radio show on Friday, a little bit about, what's going to happen in the future. And maybe what Pete Alonso of the Mets was saying is true. They're greasing balls to free agents to make sure that those guys are putting up big numbers. Although a 2-0 win really speaks to how well that Zach Davies was pitching, more so than the Chicago Cubs offense last night. But yeah, I'd say they're one of the bigger surprises. Cubs and San Francisco Giants leading their divisions is a bit of a surprise. I think we both thought that Milwaukee was going to be a contender, as did Vegas. We look at the consensus odds heading in. With Chicago, though, Vasu, I think the next couple of weeks here are going to be pretty telling because they are going to be heading to New York today. We can talk about this game if you like, or the series. 4 games set against the Mets, another team that's playing pretty well in their division. Home against the Marlins. Then after that, you've got a 2-game set against Cleveland, but then you go at LA, at Milwaukee, and at Cincinnati. That right there is going to tell you whether or not this is a mirage time or a legitimate time. Look, I've started to watch them more. I never hated on the Cubs. I just didn't really foresee them being the team that would be right there. I figured it would be Cardinals and Brewers probably for the season. I don't know. You've gotten a closer look at them than I have. You've actually seen them in real life, if you will. Is this a team that you expect to see probably contending here when we get towards playoff time? Like to get
You're talking about the Cardinals?
The Cubs.
They got it. No, the Cubs. Yeah, I think they can because I think their bullpen's been really good this year. Chris Bryant's an MVP. Anthony Rizzo's starting to come out of it a little bit. Did you see his 14-pitch at bat the other day? It's all over YouTube. 14 pitches, and then the game-tying home run on pitch number 14 against the Cardinals. They had a rough weekend. Even Molina made 2 errors over the weekend, and he usually hits the Cubs well. Defensively, they didn't look good. Their bullpen is horrendous. Their closer has a 6.23 ERA. That's not good, especially if you're going to be in that division, especially with the hitters that there are in that division. The Reds are playing well right now, and it's going to be an interesting division. I'm interested to see what the Cubs do at the trading deadline if they're going to.
Yeah.
A lot of people in Chicago are talking about the Ricketts family. They don't like the Ricketts family, and they're afraid that they're going to make some trades that are going to be very unpopular. So if you're looking for Chris Bryant right now, put your offers out there because he may take them. And Javi Baez is due the extension as well too, and he's in that shortstop class that's going to get a lot of money this year. So we'll see how it goes from the NL Central. So that's some of the NL stuff going on. Atlanta lost 2 out of 3 to Miami. Like I said, the Dodgers took 2 out of 3 from Texas, and Arizona blows the lead versus the Angels in the National League East. The Mets Jacob deGrom pitched well on Friday. The bullpen almost blew the lead, but the Mets are in first place. They're 3 games up on the Phillies, but they're 6 games up in the loss column because the Mets got that 1 week late start. So they have games to make up, and that could bode well for Philadelphia. And how about the Phillies over the Yankees, Casey? 2 walk-offs and then a 7-0 win by Aaron Nola last night. An easy win for Aaron Nola, an easy win for me on my ledger yesterday. But the Phillies look pretty good. They're starting to hit the ball a little bit better, but if they could fix that bullpen, they could be the best team in that division because Atlanta is -2 in run differential. Philadelphia is still -5. Miami Marlins are still +6, but the Mets are +17 now. And the Mets starting pitching has been real good. Marcus Stroman won on Saturday as well, too, as a $1.30 underdog against Musgrove. I think everybody's overrating the Padres right now, and the Mets showed them that they can beat them because outside of Tatis right now, nobody's hitting for the Padres. Padres don't get enough leads to get to that awesome bullpen, and Melanson's been perfect, Casey.
Yeah, Melanson has had quite the career renaissance. Reminds me of the Melanson of the Atlanta Braves days, but you're right. They don't always get a chance to get it to him, and it's funny. I mean, we're trashing a team that's 38-29 because we felt like they should be, more like already in the 42-43 win range at this point. I guess, we could talk about the Phillies. We could also move it to the American League and talk about the Yankees because it's like a tale of 2 teams in 2 different areas. I mean, would you venture to say, Vasu, this might be one of the more disappointing New York Yankees teams of recent times? I know we're saying about a team that's 1 game above 500, but when you watch them, they don't have that fear factor or that it factor when they're out there. And to get swept by the Phillies is not a great look. I have a lot of respect for Philly. I told them that was my kind of outside wild card chance, take them at 8-1 to win the division before we got going. But this Yankees team, they get out there, they want to be feared, but I do not fear them, and I want my team to play them right now. Do you agree?
Totally agree right now. The bats are struggling. Starting pitching struggled all year. They had Garrett Cole going. He was going good, and he still is going good. Corey Kluber got hurt. He was the second best pitcher. The rest of the starting pitching is average at best. Their bullpen in the middle innings are not very good. If your starters don't go very long, then your bullpen gets exposed and you can't get a lead at the end of Chapman. Chapman's been the only good thing for the Yankees this year, bullpen-wise, and they don't play very good defense either. And you could tell, and Aaron Boone's a very nice guy, but his press conference yesterday showed a guy who was a little frustrated and speaking on the other end in the other dugout. Don't you think Joe Girardi was a little happy after this weekend, after what happened between him and the Yankees? I got a feeling Joe Girardi, if he doesn't smoke cigars, I bet he started yesterday after the game.
Yeah, I think he probably did. Maybe even one that didn't come from America. That might warrant a Cuban. That's how good that he's got to feel there. Hey, they're 32-31. That division's going to be wonky because you already mentioned that the Mets kind of had it delayed by a week. So where those doubleheaders end up coming out, the time of year as far as setting up your rotation, that's going to be a fun division to watch. I also feel like, Vasu, as we wrap up the NL talk here, I don't think this Central is done shaking itself out. I could see a team like the Cubs, who are just coming off a great series, struggling a little bit, allowing the Cardinals to creep back in. I think Milwaukee's been the most consistent. And as our friend Charlie O, who gave you folks just a fantastic over winner on the Reds on Friday, that game was over the total in like the 4th inning. They've got some power there as well. Now they've got the disadvantage of playing in that stadium where their pitchers are nervous about giving up long shots every time they take the mound. But I really feel like the NL Central probably, even though it's Flag Day, we want to look ahead. I think we got to wait a few more weeks before we really know who's the best in that division.
Yeah, what's your favorite type of flag? Never mind. We'll get to that later. Toronto looking at 3 of 4 from Boston. They're hitting. By the way, Vladimir Guerrero is leading all the Triple Crown categories. I didn't realize that until I saw Baseball Tonight yesterday. Leading in home runs, leading in average, and leading in RBIs. Talk about a brand new MVP candidate that might not be noticed by anybody, especially the fact that nobody knows where they're playing. They're in Buffalo now, folks, by the way, and they may be in Canada after June 22nd or after July 1st. Who knows? We said the Yankees get swept. How about the Tampa Bay Rays? 42-24. They did have Baltimore over the weekend. They did sweep Baltimore. They are increasing their lead. They're 3 up on Boston, who has lost the 2 out of the first 3 to Toronto. They have Nate Eovaldi going tonight for the Red Sox. Toronto, with that hitting team, though, right now, I can't even look at taking the Red Sox right now. Oakland sweeps Kansas City. They're in first place still by 2 up on the Astros, who take 2 of 3 from Minnesota. I feel like Minnesota's starting to play better. They're going to Seattle this week. The Angels sweep Arizona. They've won 6 in a row. Big series for the A's and Angels this week starting tonight. I might have to take a game in, hopefully tomorrow or Wednesday. I don't have to work the other side of the bay. Cleveland took 2 out of 3 from Seattle. They're 5.5 back of the White Sox. And when we get to the American League lines, you'll see a very interesting scenario between the Tampa Bay Rays and the Chicago White Sox. Coming up this week, Cubs, Mets, Rays, Chicago, Reds, Brewers, Angels, A's, Philly, Los Angeles, Minnesota, Seattle, Giants, and San Diego look to revive bats versus Arizona, Colorado, and St. Louis. We talked about struggling under 500 behind Cincinnati. These are the series coming up this week, Casey.
Well, I mean, because we watch a lot of baseball, I think we're both geeked up for Tampa and Chicago. I've not got a chance to watch the Rays a whole bunch because they're just not available. And the White Sox are a team that is one of the few teams that has actually fulfilled their role, and they're right there where I think we thought they would be. If you told me they were going to be 41-24 at this point of the year, I'd say absolutely they should be, considering their starting pitching and how great their offense is. I do like Tyler Glasnow. I really like this matchup tonight, by the way. Glasnow against Lance Lynn. I mean, between them, you're looking at 12 wins right there. That might be the highest combined win total of any pitching combination this year. So Tampa and Chicago, that's definitely intriguing this week. And then, you know, until I pulled it up, I didn't even realize those sneaky Los Angeles Angels had crept 1 game over 500. That's what happens when you get to play against the god-awful Arizona Diamondbacks. So San Francisco Giants fans are happy this week as they get that series started. But yeah, Angels A's is intriguing tonight. I know Dylan Bundy's only 1-6, but the runs have started coming a little bit more consistently. Maybe the Angels have just gotten used to not playing with Trout, and they found a way to kind of dig deep. Sean Manaea 5-2. That record is a little suspicious, but the A's are good. They're playing very well. And Vasu, has any other team really exploited a homestand like this? The A's knew when they came back. They had a good road trip. I think they went 4-2 in their 6 games. But looking at the schedule coming home, you're like, oh, Diamondbacks and then the Royals and then the Angels. This is setting up beautifully. So I think Oakland is right there as well. And it's going to be a good week. There are some intriguing matchups. You also alluded to the Twins and Mariners. Minnesota has to be better than a team that's 13 games under 500.
Totally agree.
With the roster that they have. So maybe this is where they start to right the ship.
We'll see, because Seattle's still in the mix. They're 8 games back. They won their last game. They won yesterday in Cleveland to salvage the series. I'm interested in Tampa Bay and Chicago, obviously, because it's 2 first-place teams. You a little surprised, Casey, that the Tampa Bay Rays are favored going into Chicago? I know Tyler Glasnow's on the hill, but the White Sox are plus 106 in run differential, and they're at home. I got to think maybe Lance Lynn might be the play tonight in that. We'll give you the official picks, but I kind of like the White Sox at home tonight against the Rays, even though the Rays are hot.
Yeah, it's a line that they probably had a little difficulty setting up. In fact, I have a play on this game, but I'm going to be going first 5 innings when we get to picks. So I definitely will be keeping an eye on this one. Also, you can't ask for any better weather. It's projected to be 76 degrees and mostly sunny at first pitch. So that's a good one. As far as the rest of it, you mentioned the Buffalo Blue Jays.
Yeah, what about Toronto and they're hitting right now? They are just putting runs up left and right.
That's the kind of team that really has to do themselves a service and go get another arm at the deadline. I wonder if once they get back to Toronto, Vasu, how that's going to affect the organization's mindset moving forward. You know, at what point do you get to go back to Canada? Can you start feeling like you can travel around a little more freely? And I say give a lot of credit to that organization for being 3 games above 500. I can't even imagine what it's like probably having a home in Toronto, being forced out to Buffalo, and really not having any kind of a, real home field advantage, if you will. I mean, look, the Buffalo fans are great, but it's almost Bill season. They'll forget right about the Blue Jays.
Well, it'll be interesting to see, because the one thing the Blue Jays can do, unlike a lot of teams in the American League right now, they can hit. And Vladimir Guerrero might be the hottest thing since sliced bread right now with the Triple Crown possibility. Didn't even realize that he was first in all the categories, but he's had a big weekend in Boston, and Boston's pitching starting to struggle a little bit, and their offense has gone down a little bit. They are 7.5 back of the Rays, 4.5 back of the Red Sox, and they've certainly made up ground on Boston as well. All right, let's move on to the National League games. that we have today. I'm kind of interested in this Washington-Pittsburgh game based on how Washington played the Giants this weekend. JT Brubaker, the best pitcher for the Pirates right now. That total a little high because the Pirates don't swing the bat very well, even though they've got a couple of guys in Frazier and Brian Reynolds who won the batting title a couple of years ago. Low favorite at home for Washington tonight. You mentioned the Mets and Cubs. David Peterson struggled. He's their phenom that coming up through the minors. Jake Arrieta has had some good games, bad games. Milwaukee, Cincinnati, we talked about it. 9-1 for Milwaukee, 8-2 for Cincinnati. The last 10, this Victor Gutierrez is outstanding. 2.5 ERA for a Red staff that he's clearly put himself in that rotation. Eric Lauer struggled a little bit. Might have to look at Cincinnati here because Milwaukee, they go through struggles every once in a while without hitting. St. Louis is a $1.80 favorite on Miami. I'm not so sure. They're not playing very well, even though it's Adam Wainwright. Cooper Garrett, not Cooper Garrett. That's Garrett Cooper from Miami. But there is
Braxton Garrett.
What is it?
Braxton Garrett.
Braxton Garrett. Yeah, Garrett Cooper's the infielder. He's going for the Marlins tonight. That's why you have co-hosts, folks. San Diego, a 144 at Colorado with Dinelson LeMay and Austin Gomber. This is a chance for the Padres to get hot again. Austin Gomber, part of the Arenado trade. He's the best pitcher going for Colorado. Colorado seems like their bats have been going a little bit, but they have struggled. They have lost 4 in a row. They're 3-7. They're 15.5 back. The Diamondbacks have lost 10 in a row. 0-10 in their last 10. They're 20.5 back. So a good chance for the Giants and the Padres to get healthy this week and kind of get their bats going after they struggled the last week, Casey.
Well, I mean, the Diamondbacks are so terrible. Like, it's just unbelievable. I don't know how the three of us missed that. I didn't have Arizona as the worst team. I thought, I had a few feelings heading into the season. I thought the Pirates would get over that 57 win threshold. And obviously they're looking like a team that's going to be having to claw their way to 57 wins. But I didn't see Arizona as being a terrible team. And this is a terrible team, Vasu. 9-27 away. I think they're on a 19-game losing streak, which, as you know, is so damn difficult to do. I mean, you have to fluke your way into a win or two. So if I'm a San Francisco fan, I'm feeling very good about this. And I want to go back to the gambling psychology that we talk about, Vasu, because a lot of people are going to be inclined to say, look, this team's lost 19 in a row on the road. They're due. There's no such thing as due. You always talk about that, especially when we're just on the phone. There is no such thing as due. They could lose 25 in a row on the road. Yeah. Don't just start throwing money at a team because they're due. Because
due to win. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No sport it will take your money away faster than Major League Baseball as far as that strategy, right?
No doubt about it. And San Francisco has Alex Wood tonight. He struggled a little bit his last 2 starts. The Angels got to him about a week and a half ago. Alex Wood and Matt Peacock going for Arizona. They have lost 10 in a row. In case he said 19 on the road. Dodgers are going bullpen game tonight with Tony Gonsolin and Spencer Howard. Philly's also going a bullpen game. 9.5 might be a lot in L.A. for a night game tonight, but 160 for the Dodgers. Even though they did lose the middle game to Texas, they are only 1 game back of the Giants, who have struggled. They did struggle with Washington. The Giants lost a half game to the Dodgers. They did lose a half game to the Padres. They gained a half game on the Padres because the Padres lost 2 out of 3. So late games tonight. Those are the late games as we get it. All right, our world famous picks are coming up. We're going to take 30 to gather our picks here right now. Don't forget to tune in on Facebook Live and YouTube Live, and also on the podcast, Apple, Spotify, SoundCloud, iHeart, Google, anywhere you get your podcast. Find the logo, rate, review, download, subscribe. Thanks to everybody on Facebook Live for commenting and tuning in on YouTube as well. Back in 30, our world famous pick segment. Welcome back, everybody. Vasu Vaddiparty, Casey Freelove here for Monday, June 14th. The best day to look at standings, Flag Day, as we noted earlier, since I was wrong on Friday. And we're wrong a lot. We admit it. That's why we have picks here, and we keep track of our records. Catch us Mondays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Charlie will be with me on Thursday, and then a full house on Friday as well. Download and miss it. If you miss, especially this part, our worldwide famous pick segments now. I think we've been hot lately. I haven't kept track of the exact records, but I know I had a good weekend, and I know I did pretty well on Friday. So let's go with it, Casey. Casey's picks 5-3 last week. That's good. 62%. That's profit.
Yeah, it's profit, and we had a couple that were sweats, could have gone the other way, and we've had a pretty successful run. I know unit-wise with basketball, I'm definitely going to finish a winner. So that is a good feeling between college and pro. Next year, I'm going to separate them so I can kind of put my finger on the pulse of which one I'm doing better at. I think college basketball has always been more of my strong suit. But let's start with the NBA, Philadelphia 76ers. I think I gave you all the reasoning why. I think they're going to win. I'm not going to mess with the points. I'm just going to go money line. I feel comfortable laying $1.50 on this. In fact, I'd probably go, 300, 400. This could be a two-unit play is my thought there, because I just feel like between Embiid and figuring out the Trae Young formula defensively, the Sixers are in a really good position to maybe not lose another game this series and maybe even win the whole East. We'll talk about that later. Moving on, Cardinals first 5. Look, Adam Wainwright's a stalwart. He's a guy you go to after you've been struggling. You're not scoring a lot of runs, and you've got to think that you can beat the Marlins. You should be able to beat the Marlins at home if you're going to get 10. So I will go first 5 innings, a little pricey, a little higher than I normally would go, but I'll lay the 185. Then Tyler Glasnow, I mean, you talked about it. Lance Lynn, it's a great matchup here. This is one where I like this play. I don't love this play, but I'm giving you plays because that's what we do. Tampa first 5 and Glasnow to pick up the lead. Don't be surprised, though, once we get to the bullpens, this one starts going up, up, up. It ends up being a very high-scoring affair. So a little different outlook this week. Typically, I'm giving you full game plays. I'm going to go with a couple first 5 tonight, see how that feels. And then I think make sure you keep an eye on Vasu's social media tomorrow, because I'll probably throw out a play in the Nets and Bucks game once we figure out the injury situation.
Yeah, we'll put it all out on everybody's social media. We all have social media. You can find us anywhere on social media. Our email address, mtmarpodcast@gmail.com, on Twitter at mtmarpodcast as well, too. All right, I'm here with my picks now to open the week. I like that Washington-Pittsburgh game under. I don't think both teams can score. John Lester, I know, has had some troubles, but JT Brubaker has been the best pitcher for the Pirates, under 9 in Washington tonight. Cincinnati Reds, 8-2 in their last 10, even though the Brewers are 9-1. Victor Gutierrez, 2.58 ERA. Eric Lauer's not the top starter. He's not Woodruff. He's not Burns. He's not Peralta. And so I think this is a shot for Cincinnati to get back in it. They have Joey Votto back in the lineup. They have Mike Moustakas back in the lineup. And Eugenio Suarez, is not going to hit 158 this year with 3 home runs. He's going to start to get the bat going. I know he's had a tough time playing shortstop, moving at shortstop. That probably has affected his hitting. But the Cincinnati Reds plus 128 in Milwaukee tonight. Giants bats are going to get hot tonight. Alex Wood has been red hot, except for the last 2 starts against the Dodgers and the 1 start against the Angels. But I think he's going to make it back. He's been solid all year. They are in first place for a reason, and he's one of the 5 reasons that they're in first place from a starting pitching standpoint. And I think getting out of that humidity in Washington is going to help them come back to face a really, 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 really awful Diamondbacks team tonight. I don't know how many reallys I can say, but they've lost 10 in a row. We don't have enough time for me to go through 10 reallys, but you get the idea.
Accurate.
Accurate. The Toronto Blue Jays, they won 2 out of 3 against Boston in Fenway. They put 18 runs up on the Red Sox pitching yesterday. Nate Eovaldi, the ace of the staff, but he's really had a tough time at home. And this kid, Alex Manoah, if you have not seen him pitch, he's got good stuff. He shut out the White Sox in his first start a few weeks back as a rookie in Chicago, and he's got good stuff. And I think the Blue Jays are red hot right now. We talked about Vladimir Guerrero. Bo Bichette had 4 hits yesterday, and Kevin Biggio's been playing well as well. Teoscar Hernandez, they hit 8 home runs yesterday, Casey, in Boston. I know it's Fenway Park, and I know you can hit the ball out as a right-handed hitter, but they still hit 8 home runs yesterday, and that's a lot of home runs to give up. Christian Arroyo ended up on the mound at the end, the middle infielder for the Red Sox. Ended up in the end, Rowdy Tellez hit a home run off him to close out the scoring for Toronto. 18 runs, so Toronto plus 120 tonight behind Alex Manoah. Kenta Maeda's pitched well for the Twins this year. He's been the only one pitching well for them. And if they play defense tonight, Seattle's struggling a little bit. Marco Gonzalez coming off the DL. I think Minnesota minus 135 will be a good play. Utah Clippers, I had them on Saturday over 222. It's up 1.5 from Saturday, 223.5 over tonight. I think Utah scores a little bit more. Clippers seem like they're hot. They're shooting the ball well. Kawhi Leonard had his points on Saturday. Paul George showed up, and Reggie Jackson had 28 on Saturday night as well, too. So they get those 3 guys going and get a little bit more contribution. Zubac played well as well on Saturday night as well. And then I'm going to add Philadelphia minus 3.5 tonight. I'm going to take the Sixers minus 3.5. I just like the way they're playing, and they really can't stop Joel Embiid. And all the Clint Capella, he's going to neutralize him talk and all this other stuff. Garbage. I was wrong. Everybody else is wrong. Joel Embiid
is. Admit it.
Yeah, Joel Embiid is playing like a beast. and he shoots 80% from the free throw line. He's about 38% from threes, and his footwork is so good that he's even beaten smaller guys on the outside going to the basket. And, of course, the powerful dunking ability. And Ben Simmons playing great defense, and Trae Young has struggled since that first half of game one. It's been all Philadelphia since the second half of game one through game two. Game three, they ended up winning by 17, 18 points, even though it was close in both games 2 and 3. So Philadelphia minus 3.5 is the way it's going to be. So Washington, Pittsburgh under 9, Cincinnati plus 128, the Giants minus 170, Toronto plus 120. A lot of underdogs for me tonight, actually. Minnesota minus 135, Clippers and Utah over 223.5. Don't be surprised the Clippers cover 5, but I'm not taking it here tonight. All right, Casey and I will be back with Charlie on Friday. Charlie will join me on Thursday for the Make the Money and Run podcast on Facebook Live and YouTube. Thanks to everybody for chiming in on Facebook and YouTube. Download and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Google, iHeart, Spotify, and SoundCloud. Subscribe, rate, and review, and leave us a comment, mtmarpodcast@gmail.com. For Casey Freelove, Charlie on assignment, I'm Vasu Vaddiparty. Have a great Monday. Enjoy the games. Good luck. Check out our social media. We'll have picks during the week, and we'll see you Thursday, 4:15 for the Make the Money and Run podcast. Have a great afternoon, everybody, and we will talk to you then.